would you welcome to the stage Derek Ross? Here he comes. He's going to moderate the panel.
This fucking puts me like right off the panel. I was like, what the fuck?
Alex Svetski.
Yep.
Pablo. Come on, guys. Martti. Here they all come. Have a great discussion, guys. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Prague. Let's take a break from talking about the orange pill and let's talk about the purple pill for a little bit. Of course, I'm talking about Nostr, because Nostr is the purple pill that helps the orange pill go down. Nostr and Bitcoin have a beautiful symbiotic relationship together. I believe that you truly don't have the ability to transact until you have the freedom and the ability to communicate. But Nostr is much more than Bitcoin. Nostr is a social identity layer, and Nostr is various things to various people. These amazing gentlemen that I'm joined with on stage are facilitating that vision. They're facilitating that by building on Nostr. So we're going to get started. Let's start with Martti here and talk about what Nostr means to you, Martti, and why you decided to build on Nostr.
Yeah, Nostr is the everything up of freedom. Bitcoin is freedom of money, and Nostr is freedom of everything else. So I've been working with similar stuff for quite a while. Since 2019, I actually been working on Iris, just on a different platform. It was very similar conceptually, like public key-based accounts and WebSocket-based sync. Then I was ready to quit, actually, but then Nostr came as a godsend, and here we are.
That's great. Svetski, what does Nostr mean to you?
Well, I am nowhere near as smart as these guys. Like, these guys are brilliant. They actually build stuff. I'm like the dude that comes afterwards and says, hey, that's cool. Maybe we could use it here. And for me, I went down and not many people know this, but I went down the DID rabbit hole a couple of years ago. And I was really excited about DIDs, and I looked at what John Carvalho was building with slash tags and stuff like that. And conceptually, the idea of owning your identity directly through some sort of public-private key pair made a lot of sense. And I guess that's because we've been blessed by discovering Bitcoin first. You know, Bitcoin actually opened the door for something like Nostr to exist, because the internet up until now has been this place where you've got, you know, a stack of protocols, but your identity has always lived inside applications. So your identity, your followers, your content, and everything has always lived somewhere else. So it's been rented. You know, so email marketers always tell you that your email list is the only thing you own. Every other audience you rent from Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, right? So the idea of actually having an identity that is public-private key pair was interesting. Now, I went to Costa Rica when that sort of happened. What was that, last year? Yeah, March last year. And I was like, this is really cool, this and that. But I got bored with it. I was like, okay, cool. You know, it's early days. And I decided to go play with AI stupidity. And about, what was it, 4 or 5 months ago, 6 months ago, I came up with this idea for, like, could we use Nostr as a, you know, I came up with social as a service or social graph as a service. And that's how I've started viewing it. And yeah, since then, I re-purple pilled myself. So I'm one of the idiots who took 2 purple pills, like get it through my damn head.
But you eventually came back. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I came back. And I was like, this is incredible. And I've gone down the Nostr rabbit hole, and I've got like orange injected in one of my veins and purple injected in the other one now. And I think it's really cool. And also just like, it's actually been I should also say this, and this is just as a thank you to all of you guys. When I was going down the AI rabbit hole, the level of cringe in that industry, like, makes you want to just like grate, you know, your face with a cheese grater. Like, it's like really, really, really bad. But working around people like this who actually give a shit about something is incredible. So even though like all the stuff that we're building, whether it's Highlighter, whether it's Iris, whether it's Primal, whether it's Atlantis, there's a lot going on, and you know, shit's always breaking. Nostr is early, you know what I mean? You'll do a post and you'll be like, where the fuck is this post going? Like, it's just all sorts of stuff happens, but it's actually a pleasure to be working with people. Like, I'll message Pablo at like midnight. I'll be like, bro, your drafts aren't working on Highlighter. Fucking fix it. And he'll be like, okay, push the fix. It's working. It's like, with the AI dorks, that was never happening. So like, it's just a pleasure to be coming into this.
Absolutely, and you highlighted a great point about Noster. We are early, so things do have hiccups. Things may not work that well, but when they do hiccup and when they do fail, you can message the developer directly and get support most of the time, and they're going to fix it. If something doesn't work on Twitter, you're going to fucking talk to Elon Musk. Is he going to, you know, are you going to talk to Mark Zuckerberg? They're not going to do anything. No, like you don't have that level of one-on-one interaction there, and Noster has that community of people building. So Pablo, why did you choose to build on Noster, and what does Noster mean to you?
I've been much like these guys. I was also interested in the ideas, and I was also interested in like all the promises that the semantic web folks had back in the day. And I was doing stuff on semantic web back in like whatever 2010, and then I realized how quickly you would hit a brick wall with that, and how it actually the economic incentives simply don't work for that. And then I also started playing around with hypercores before it was the protocol was acquired, and I realized how complex that was. But I was still quite interested because the idea of the portable identity is something that speaks to me a lot. And then when I started working on Nostr stuff, I realized how orders of magnitude way easier it is to build stuff with Nostr, which is very important because when you're building on a protocol and the protocol is tough, when the protocol is really complex, it makes you not have full sovereignty over how you access the protocol. If you're forced to go through an SDK that someone built in order for you to speak that protocol, you are downstream from the developers that are actually able to maintain the protocol. So to me, the simplicity of Nostr was what absolutely sold me on it. It fixes a bunch of really complex computer science issues like interprocess communication in a very simple, very naive way, but that it just works. And kind of the beauty when you were saying when something doesn't work on Nostr, you can just DM the developer, and we are all like super active. One of the things is that there are so many. Like, the developer community on Nostr is absolutely insane. I have never seen something with a ratio of developers to users with this level.
Everyone's a developer.
Everybody's a developer. But the thing is that working on Nostr is so simple that even a project that maybe the developer moves on and doesn't want to work on that thing anymore, someone can very easily come in and take over the idea or to even take over the code base. So to me, it has a level of sustainability, and it has all the right incentives to fix all the things that have basically destroyed the web. We live in a world where all of the internet kind of looks the same, and there is a technological reason why everything looks the same. The incentives are to bake identity, because identity, we don't have it as a layer on the internet stack. So the incentives are to build identity within the application. And that means that applications, creating identity and creating a social graph is extremely expensive. So that means that only large companies are able to leverage the position where they can create these social networks. So if you want to create a business, you either become Twitter or you become a customer of Twitter, and you are downstream from Twitter. You are a pawn to Twitter, to Reddit, to the companies that are able to create these network effects. And I see Nostr in such an amazing position to bring that back and bring back identity and the social graph into a layer that everybody is able to create a business on top.
Absolutely. Miljan, what is Nostr to you? Why are you building on Nostr? How do you use Nostr?
We build on Nostr for the same reason that we build on Bitcoin, because both Bitcoin and Nostr are open protocols. And what does that mean, open protocols? That means that no one's in charge, yet somehow they work. And not only do they work, but they thrive when individual actors on the network act in their own self-interest. Both Bitcoin has this property and has really become a very resilient network as a side effect of that. Noster has this exact same quality. And even though Noster is in very early kind of days of development, we're observing this ecosystem of apps and services that is sprouting on top of Noster. That's really amazing in terms of all of the different kinds of apps that are being built on Noster. And by the way, for those of you out there who think that maybe Noster is just like a decentralized Twitter competitor, there's a lot more going on there.
Absolutely. Like, Noster is not just a Twitter competitor. That's maybe the most popular use today, but hopefully tomorrow, a year from now, that's not the case, right?
Noster is literally the foundation for the new web. It's the foundation for everything. Noster gives us this, first of all, identity layer of cryptographic identities, where every user gets a key pair, public key, private key. And the owners of these key pairs can decide to attach some metadata to those keys, like profile picture, like a name, lightning address, and so forth. Then these cryptographic identities can have relationships with each other. They can follow each other and have other kind of metadata connecting them, giving us the global web of trust of cryptographic identities, which is an extremely powerful building block for the internet, and it's something that cryptographers have been dreaming about for decades. So this is happening. And then Nostr gives us a public relay infrastructure that allows these cryptographic identities to communicate, to send messages to each other, so it becomes a communication or messaging layer as well. And then finally it becomes a publishing or persistence layer, also using the public relay infrastructure. So these are such powerful building blocks that are used, that can be used and are being used already to build like a wide variety of different applications, including important things like fundamental infrastructure for Bitcoin itself. And I think this is something that a lot of Bitcoiners are still sleeping on, that the amount of and the versatility of the core fundamental Bitcoin infrastructure which is being built on Noster. So this is something I'm personally super excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I look back a year and a half ago when I first started using Noster, and a lot of us did, I wouldn't have thought that developers in the Bitcoin ecosystem would be using Noster for a layer of discovery and communication. There's multiple wallets that are building various integrations with Noster, from address books to cashew mint discovery, and it's really wild. Beyond these social communication for application layers, Pablo, you're kind of an other stuff maximalist, you like to call yourself, because I like to joke and say you've built half of Noster, not centralized, but Pablo has built many things across Noster. You want to talk a little bit about that? Why Noster is great and really bullish and exciting for the other stuff of Noster?
Because I built it.
Now, Nostr has some very simple primitives that allow for, Fiat Chef would hate it, but it has very good composability. So you can put together different use cases and tie them together in a very seamless way. Like the way we've seen the internet grow is in all these silos, and that's why we talk about all the silos are broken. We have all these different use cases that are siloed across the different platforms. So you want to consume a video or publish a video, and you go to YouTube or maybe to Vimeo. You want to read an article, and you go to Medium or you go to Substack. You want to do like fast-paced news, microblogging, you go to Twitter. But none of the activities on these different silos affect the activity on the other. So content creators, for example, when they want to publish something, they have to have a TikTok strategy, a YouTube strategy, a Twitter strategy, an Instagram strategy. And with Nostr, it's all the same. So That allows us to create experiences that maybe they would not have enough economical weight behind them to be their own thing, their own silo, but they can be their own thing within a larger network of users and data. That's why I keep thinking that Nostr allows us to experience the long tail of creativity, because we don't. A developer can create a very compelling experience that speaks to an audience of 10,000 users. You would not be able to ever create a sustainable business if your total addressable market is 10,000 users. So the fact that we can put all these different things together, all these different puzzle pieces together and create a new type of experience is what has, to me, it has sparked my creativity so much, being able to experiment with all these different ideas. So one of the things that I created kind of recently was the idea of Wikifreedia, which is like a Wikipedia. But the fact that it is a Nostr, that is like the least interesting aspect to it. The fact that it's a Nostr by necessity, by technological necessity, demands that there is no one canonical entry for anything. So you can't go to Wikifreedia and say, okay, tell me what happened, like give me the biography of Mrs. No. There are many people that have different approaches to what happened and what is relevant and what is interesting. So you can see much more long-tail information about each particular entry. And that is only possible because this is built on Nostr. If I were to say, I'm going to create this website, it's going to be its own database, its own thing, completely isolated, and I'm going to call it Wikifreedia, it would have 0 users. It would be an insurmountable effort to be able to bootstrap that. But I already have the bootstrap of the network because it's being built on Nostr.
I think that talking about social identity and this portable identity that you can take with you from application to application, maybe that turns into Noster's best-selling feature. We think decentralization and censorship resistance is it, and that's extremely important. But the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of the world doesn't care about that until it directly affects them. We think zaps are cool. Zaps are really cool. We love zaps. But again, the whole world doesn't use Bitcoin yet, right? And so zaps aren't as important as we would like them to be. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's data portability, and it's tearing down these silos and social identity that are the real selling points for Nostr.
I think Nostr allows for us to discover a more authentic experience, a more genuine. Like if you think about most people that you interact with, for the vast majority, they will be, even within like this crowd, we are all like Bitcoiners, so we're kind of like fringe basically, but most people are still using either Twitter or Facebook or whatever, Reddit or whatever it might be. All these people are being programmed by economical incentives, by 1 or 2 or 3 closed source algorithms that you cannot opt out of. Even if you opt out of using Twitter, the people that you interact with are still being programmed. So I myself, I'm not on Twitter anymore, but I am still being programmed by how the people that surround me behave, and those people are, in large part, being programmed by these algorithms. So I think moving to Nostr, like eventually the killer app is that we stop being programmed. Like entirely, as a society, we stop being programmed all the time.
Is there anything to add to that, Svetski?
I mean, I would just say that at some point we're all being programmed by something. Maybe we will be more intentionally programmed, and it's more of ourselves. But I think the point that you just mentioned about the killer app for Nostr, right? And this is a trap that Bitcoiners get stuck in, is we go on and on and on and on and on about censorship resistance because that is Bitcoin's primary utility, in my opinion. And we, because the orange and the purple are so close together, we kind of put that over there as well. And I don't think that is really going to drive the 99% of people that we want to get on Nostr. So the pitch that I've sort of been playing with for people comes back to what I said earlier about you own your email list, and you rent all of the others. The world is moving, each day is moving more towards content creators, people who produce education online. I mean, we all in some capacity are either creators or educators, right? Whether you're a father, whether you're a friend, whether you're someone who is really good at, I see Paul in the audience here, he's fantastic when it comes to health and biohacking and figuring out what's going on, where people pay Bitcoin, etc. So people we live in a world where, first of all, the social graph is not going away. When social media came out, it opened that Pandora's box, and that's not going back in. So the idea of following other people and being connected online is not going away. We just need to do it better because of how broken it is at the moment and the fact that everyone is the product and you're renting your lists and all this sort of shit. But if we're moving in that direction, if there's more and more and more creators that are going to come online, if there's more people educating, if there's more people digital nomading and being a one-man business. There's a guy called Dan Koh who's a fantastic content creator online, and he talks about this quite a bit. If that's what's going on, your digital identity, your reputation, your online persona is going to be valuable. So in the same way as you wouldn't go and take, if you had a brain, you wouldn't go and take $5 billion and put it in JP Morgan. Right? You would go and get Bitcoin because Bitcoin gives you a greater guarantee of where your money is going to be stored. So why would you go and build an entire online reputation and give it to Facebook or Twitter? So this thing here, it's like you want ownership of that asset. And I think if we position it that way, that your profile is now yours, it's your asset. You own it in the same way as you own your email list, but with the distribution of a social network. So it's like way richer than an email list. You now have something really, really, really compelling to sell to the normies. And you didn't even have to say Bitcoin, you didn't have to say censorship resistance, you didn't have to say some fucking fringe, the government's gonna kill us all, and you can take your tinfoil hat off and you can get people on through some sort of compelling pitch that way. So I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, to me, that was one of the things that got me very excited about Noster is that the pitch for Noster, for the most part, doesn't have to be diminishing of negatives. It can be leaning really hard on so many positives that it has. And I think that's one of the mistakes that Bitcoiners we've made is that usually the pitch is the central banks are going to fuck you, they're going to steal your money, they're going to dilute you, and there are so many positives to Bitcoin. And leaning into the, look at this amazing world that you can also create, it's so much more compelling.
Yes, it's so nice Nostr is so great for developers. It's nice for us users, especially us Bitcoiners. But I think one thing that can drive the adoption is also business. Like a startup, it's so convenient. You start with the existing social graph. You don't need to maintain your user database and take care of the GDPR bullshit. You can use the relay system to store the user's data with no moderation issues and all that.
No more captcha. I mean, I've been here even with Signal, and I'm trying to send messages, and every day the app keeps asking me to prove that I'm human. I'm like, motherfucker, I proved this yesterday. I am human. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Openness is the killer feature of Noster. In the long run, this is what really plays out and it makes Noster win. For example, Venmo has this cool feature where you can look someone up and send them a payment. And Cash App has the same feature, as does PayPal. But they are all closed networks. They don't interoperate between each other. And this is by design. There are these walled gardens that are carefully, kind of jealously guarded. And they're guarded in a way where the walls are getting taller. It's harder to access Twitter content, for example, unless you're logged in. You get less and less. The contrast to that is Noster, where everything is open, where Noster is becoming a de facto public Lightning directory. And on Noster, you can look someone up and send them a payment, and you can do that from any Bitcoin wallet that supports Noster. So you can do that, let's say, from Primal, or you can do that from Mutiny or other wallets. And Primal and Mutiny are completely different kinds of Bitcoin wallets. Primal is custodial. It's meant to be very easy to onboard and kind of maintain, whereas Mutiny is like a cypherpunk type of wallet that allows full custody, over your Lightning funds, and of course they have Fedimint support and things like that. So completely two different philosophies around building a Bitcoin wallet, yet we can interoperate on this global network because we're both plugging into it. And Noster, for example, just as one example of this openness and how it brings a killer feature to all kinds of apps, will enable all Bitcoin wallets to be interoperable, regardless of where they kind of belong on that scale of sovereignty, let's say. So play that out for every type of feature, not just for wallet, Lightning addresses, but for every feature, for every type of app. Let's say you're building a social media client, or you're building a long-form content client, like a Substack Medium competitor, or you're building a travel app. Your users are posting content onto Nostr relays and enriching the amount of metadata that's available then to the entire network to leverage. And it's extremely exciting to think about like what this is going to look like a few years out.
Agree. Svetski, you mentioned owning your social identity, owning your social graph. And I think that is very, very important and very compelling. But once you own that, you can start to do some very interesting tricks with it around web of trust. And you can start building applications with your web of trust. And I know Martti has also built a web of trust graph into Iris. Can either of you talk about some things that we could facilitate with web of trust because of Noster?
Martti, you go first.
Yeah, well, web of trust can give you a new kind of user experience. We are used to all these indexing services for any platform or like centralized social media. They decide they list all the content and they decide what you're going to see. But with your web of trust, you can curate all the content that you see. Someone mentioned Wikipedia, like what you see might actually depend on what sources you trust. What you see on a social feed, on a marketplace, whatever, will depend on your social graph.
Yeah, I think that a marketplace like that is a great example. You will see something that you want to buy from a Nostr marketplace, and you recognize people that have done business within this individual, and they're a trusted seller or a trusted buyer, and then you just proceed to do business because somebody in your web of trust, your circle, your social graph, has already completed that transaction. Or also, they didn't complete the transaction, and hey, I don't want to do business with this person because Pablo and Martti both had problems with them, so maybe I don't want to do business with them. Web of trust can be very powerful.
Yeah, and you always want to filter the stuff in some way. There's spam and other kinds of unwanted content, and web of trust is a decentralized, permissionless way of solving that problem.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's how we solve the centralization issue by web of trust.
Yeah, I want to give an example of reviews. So I wrote an article, I think about a month ago, or was it 2 months ago, which was called Reviewing Reviews. And I just looked at how the entire web, basically, in fact, all commerce essentially runs on reviews. If you look at Amazon, their innovation when it was selling books was having reviews. And it's funny, you watch Jeff Bezos talk about this, and he says in the early days, publishers were like, you should not do reviews. And then they even pitched Jeff Bezos to be like, look, it's okay to do reviews, but just put the positive reviews, not the negative ones. He was like, no. So like he built that, and he literally changed the web and the way people buy things online. You look at companies like Trustpilot, businesses like Google Places. I'm sure everybody here at some point has used Google to find a restaurant or a cafe or something like that. And what do you look at? The reviews, right? What is an influencer? What is a content creator? What are they doing? They're giving you a implicit recommendation or review on a product, and if you follow them, if you have a relationship with them, if you have built trust with them, you are listening to them, you're buying from them. But all of these things are disjointed, and I would argue that the two biggest problems with just online reviews in general are irrelevance and fakeness, right? So most reviews, I think I've read a stat somewhere like on Amazon, like 44% of reviews are fake or something. Now, I don't know if the number's real or whatever, but a lot of reviews are fake. And then on the other hand is, let's say, TripAdvisor is another one of my hated companies, right? I come to a new city and I want to find a restaurant. I look on TripAdvisor and I'm getting reviews from like a 45-year-old soccer mom. What do I have in common with her? I don't know who she is. What if what she likes is something I hate? Like, it's completely irrelevant. And this, I guess, ties into what we're trying to build with Satlantis, at the risk of doing a shill here, but we looked at travel, we looked at maps, we looked at merchants, and this sort of like experience of going and discovering new places, and we thought, okay, well, can we take the Noster social graph and embed that into like a travel application so that when you go and find a merchant, when you discover a new city, when you find a new place, the reviews or the ratings or the scores or the recommendations, all this sort of stuff is influenced by your actual web of trust. So I went and ate at this restaurant and Pablo had reviewed it, and I know I definitely don't like what Pablo eats. I'll be like, I am not fucking eating there. I'm gonna go where Miljan ate because he's one of my people from the Balkans and I will like that food, right? Or whatever the case is, right? So the that for me, I think like Web of Trust is a killer feature, and it just hasn't been able to exist before outside of a silo. And the problem with a silo where your identity is owned by the silo operator is that the review can either be fake, or can be gamed, or can be deleted, or can be changed, and all that sort of shit. So that, I think, is extraordinarily powerful. I want to know what the people I'm friends with or connected to are doing. And everybody wants to know that. It's why we have content creators, why we have the web, and we're just doing it wrong in the old way. Now we have an opportunity to do it right.
The fact that we have this network and that it's publicly accessible, equally accessible by anyone, any person, any developer, and that no one controls it other than us individually controlling our own identities is immensely powerful. And I'll kind of LARP on this, like, I'll kind of harp on this, sorry. You know, one of my pet peeves is like Bitcoiners still sleeping on this. This is precisely the type of foundational technology that we need to build infrastructure for Bitcoin. This is what Bitcoin needs, and thankfully a lot of Bitcoin developers have recognized this and built a ton of things. I'll just like list a few things, like we already mentioned the public Lightning directory. You, Derek, you mentioned eCash mint discovery using the Web of Trust. We talked about Zaps, which is like Bitcoin micropayments deployed at scale. We have Wallet Connect infrastructure. We have Oracle discovery for DLCs.
Coin joins.
Like coordination for coin joins. There's none of these things existed 18 months ago. This has all been stood up very recently based on the Nostr infrastructure. And it's being done without any central planning or any central coordination. This is just people building useful things on a permissionless network. It's glorious already, and it's so early.
Absolutely, we are early. And because we're early, this actually leads into my next question. I'll open up to the panel here. Many people use whatever Nostr app they first discover, and they come across some hiccups because Nostr is early and we don't have a lot of development time that has been put into building these applications compared to applications that have been around for 20 years. So they're obviously not as mature and users experience issues. What do you recommend users do whenever they come across some hiccups, some things that aren't completely polished yet?
Shut up and deal with it. No, I'm kidding.
Because we know this happens. We've had a booth, you know, for the past 3 days here, and basically playing tech support for the past 3 days. People have a lot of issues. So what should they do?
Just try another client. That's the beauty of Nostr.
Absolutely. That's what I do. Absolutely.
Try another client. I mean, stop for a bit if it's really pissing you off. You know, use something else. Come back. You know, 2, 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later. But just like keep your curiosity. I think that's probably the best thing. It's like things are always evolving and adapting. I mean, come to the booth, and bug Derek. He's our tech support guy. Bug him on Nostr, bug him everywhere. Like bug us. We're all building stuff. But the thing is, just have that in the back of your mind. These applications are all new, and new things are going to break.
DM Derek is the correct answer.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll know what to
Leave it
do.
at that.
Yeah.
I don't like these answers.
Yeah, I'll say that obviously we've been working on Nostr applications at this level for like 18 months or so, and it's very fair to compare the Nostr, the polished level of Nostr applications with the incumbents, with the Twitter application. Those applications have been being written with an literally infinite budget, because it's free, an infinite budget over 20 years by thousands of developers and designers. So it is kind of to be expected that there will be some pain, there will be some hiccups. But what I would say is, we are where we have our time, where we put our attention. So when you put your attention on the networks that are trying to control you, on the networks that are trying to take from you, that are trying to capture you, you are feeding them. Like, you are literally feeding your energy to them. So it's up to you at an individual level to decide what is the right trade-off. Like, how much should I invest in putting my life energy into something that can be great, or into something that will be probably evil? So I think it's a very personal decision how much, what your threshold of tolerance should be with regards to dealing with bugs. But like everybody here has said,
Derek.
What's that?
DM Derek.
Do not DM Derek.
We have consensus. I think this
DM
is
Derek,
it.
and Derek will ping the right.
No, what you do is you use another client, and if that doesn't work, you check back in a week. You check back in a month. Nostr is always improving.
That's a great point, actually, and something to keep in mind to do not get discouraged when you run into these types of situations. Just rewind the tape a little bit. Consider where we were 6 months ago, a year ago. A year ago, this thing was borderline unusable. Now we run into issues here and there, but we've come a long way in a short amount of time. And many of us, I can think most of us, have this kind of history with Noster. Like Alex said, he needed multiple touch points to grok it and to realize, the importance of it. And the previous, let's say, failed touch points had to do with him getting discouraged with things not working. I went through a similar thought process myself. When I discovered Nostr initially, I completely discarded it, and that's my bad. It's important to delineate and to kind of separate these kind of early growing pains that we have with the apps that we're all building as fast as we can, by the way, from the protocol itself. The Nostr protocol is rock solid. It's the foundation that we need for all of this, and it's a function of time, and not really that much time before we have highly polished applications that are now fully interoperable and that will break all the silos.
Yeah, I'd like to say one thing, actually, is one of the things I love about the Nostr space is that we're all building in public. Like, it's none of this, we're building here and like creating this thing, and we're gonna announce an announcement of an announcement of an announcement and like keep announcing shit for the last like 4 years, and then one day we're gonna build the perfect web of trust. Trust me. Like, we're out here, we're building shit, and stuff's breaking. One thing echoes. We were on a call once, and I was like, we're doing something that's fucking broken, and I remember you just said something. It was like, don't worry, everything's broken. And I was like, this is, when you're building in public, like the whole thing is we're just like constructing, making it better, etc. And I said this to someone yesterday about Atlantis. I said, look, it's a baby, and I said, you know what? It's not even a baby; it's a fetus. And I was like, you know what? It's a retarded fetus. Like, it's not even like ready yet. It's like half baked, halfway in the oven, and it's going to take some time to iterate and get better. And that process of building in public and iteration is so much more powerful for product building than building it outside of the public. The trade-off, though, is, as we've just said, you're going to have to deal with some shit. And I think that's a fair enough trade-off because you, as users, get to have some input in the product, and you can see it develop, you can see it evolve. I mean, all of even the siloed products, you know, the early Instagrams and all that sort of stuff. Like, you know, we went back when we were doing some design stuff, and we went back to the early days and looked at what Instagram looked like. It looked like shit. But, you know, it's gotten a hell of a lot better along the way, and all of these things go through that progression.
And I think that's a good place to call because we're just about out of time.
Any final words from anyone?
Any final words? 20 seconds.
You guys have, or all of us have, the opportunity to be a part of something really special at a very early stage. So think about Bitcoin in 2009, you know, to 2010. None of us were there except for Martti.
I was there, and Nostr
were
is
there.
even
Marty
more
was there.
intense.
Marty was
So-
there working with Satoshi.
So think about how special that is. And we have that opportunity with Nostr, with an open communications and speech protocol, to participate at such an early stage. The price we pay are these small annoyances with things that occasionally don't work. I think these are the good old days, as Gigi would say, and I think that's such a great phase. These are the good old days that we're going to look back on and kind of reminisce about how things were mostly broken, but we persevered anyway and built this network together. So come join us if you're not on Nostr already.
Thank you, guys.